Successfully hit the record button. Welcome, good evening. My name is Brett Branscombe. I am the camp director this summer at Camp Carpenter. If you have not heard yet or haven't met me yet, I know I've been around for a little while. It's my 14th summer at Camp Carpenter. 7th or 8th summer on the admin team, but first summer as camp director. I'm really excited to be stepping into this role. Our goal tonight is we're going to sort of do an overview of some of the most important stuff as far as registration and med forms and what check-in is going to look like, sort of the orientation of the things you need to know to be a leader at camp. We are recording this so that it will be available afterwards if you want to review it or share it with other leaders in your pack or another pack who wasn't able to get here. The goal is after the recording, because I see the question come through, it downloads to my computer. I'll upload that and then share it with our council staff. We'll get it put up on YouTube. So once we have it there, we'll be able to bounce that link through Facebook and so on. And that hopefully will be within a few days of the meeting. So hopefully by mid this week or so, that should be available for folks to see. I try to think if there are other things I had to say before I got into my outline. I can't think of them now. So if I think of them later, I'll jump into it. There are 35 days until camp. That's a crazy small number. It's coming right around the corner. It's very exciting, but it also means a lot of things are moving at the same time. I'll also throw out a little bit of disclaimer. I'll try and answer as many questions as I can tonight. I know I have a little bit of a backlog on my emails. I did manage a couple weeks ago to catch COVID, which was just awesome and put me a little behind on camp and some school stuff as well. So I'm getting caught back up and we're going to get there, and hopefully that's out of the way with it. I don't have to worry about it again for a little while now, at least hopefully, fingers crossed. So we're going to talk through a whole bunch of stuff tonight. I introduced myself. Also joining us as sort of the core of our staffing team this summer, and we have back again as our program director, Kristen Farrell. I can't remember the number now, 7 or 8 years on staff. She's been doing it for quite a while. She got to go back to recertify as a program director because it's been 5 years already. And so she's coming back, pink boots and all, to lead all of the fun in the universe, at least inside of Camp Carpenter. And also joining us on our admin team in the head commissioner and day camp administrator role, so wearing a couple hats there, is Alex Ager, who many of you will remember has also been around Camp Carpenter and Griswold Scout Reservation for quite a while, 13 years at this point. So we've got a lot of experience on our team, and we're really excited to make some awesome stuff happen for the summer. That said, as our team is coming together, we still are looking for some other people to help join us and help make this summer happen, especially if you know anyone who is over 21, over 18. A need for some of those, especially people to help out, a few more people to help out at shooting sports. We are still looking for an aquatics director. We do have a backup plan. We will have waterfront activities. Fear not, we have a plan for that. But if we can find someone who can just do that, that'll help us out a bit as well. So if you know people, and those don't necessarily have to be close to that 21 age, if you know someone who's available for the summer, people who might be retired or educators who have the summer off, or kids home from college, any or all of the above, we'd be happy to talk to them and see if they have a place to join us on our team. We have a few, we don't have quite as many openings on the under 18 side, but there are still a few there, especially for 16 plus lifeguards. So if you know folks, we are still hiring, so you can be sure to pass that information along. That would help us out immensely. May 31st, I almost said March too. May 31st is our registration and ideally paperwork deadline. So you should be able to make any updates to registrations if you've got people to add or anything like that. That is coming up. That's also the goal, is for that to be our payment deadline. So do your best to try to have payments either in online or mailed to the office by May 31st so that we can start getting those processed through and all of that. That said, if you need a little flexibility there, reach out, ask the question. You can email me or Brendan Adams, brendan.adams@scouting.org. Who is the helping out at the council side. He has the outdoor program specialist. It's his full-time role at the council right now. So he's helping coordinate a lot of that stuff as well. So if you email him or me or both, or support@nhscouting.org, and it'll go into the ticket system and we can make sure it gets to the places it needs to go. And I'll talk a little bit more about the med form in a little bit when we get there. One of the things that I wanted to make sure I mentioned early on was some of the COVID considerations we have for camp this summer. I know a few people have been asking. We have been in some conversations with our medical team. We haven't totally finalized, but I'll share where we're at right now. And where we're at right now is mostly moving back towards normal programming as we can. We've already talked about how we are intending to bring back free time and intending to bring back things like the salad bar and the family barbecue, and I'll talk more about when those happen in the week in a little bit. But we're trying to get back to a normal programming as much as we can, while considering especially non-intrusive interventions we can take to help make people a little bit safer, or run risks down even a little bit more. So any types of outdoor activities we're generally in the clear on, and we've found that those tend to be very, very low risk. When we have indoor activities, we're going to try to move them outdoors where it's possible. And anything that we're doing indoors, we're going to make sure we're maximizing ventilation and we are maximizing distance. So for example, the dining hall is one of these places where this happens a lot. We're going to make sure we are running as much ventilation in the dining hall as we can. And we're also going to try to spread people out in the dining hall. Many years, when we have smaller groups or smaller weeks, we've tried to make it a little bit more compact so it feels a little bit tighter. We're going to generally try to spread out as much as we can to help create some more space and so on. And we're also going to be making sure that we're doing rapid testing for anyone who is displaying any kinds of symptoms. We'll make sure we coordinate with our medical team to check in on that and make sure we're handling any positive cases as appropriate. That's generally going to mean we're going to isolate any positive case until they're able to leave camp. So we're not going to be trying to keep someone who is positive on property for any longer than we have to. The goal is going to be to pick up. Hopefully not going to be a case. Outdoor transmission has typically been very, very low. We had very few problems with this last summer at Carpenter, and we expect that the summer will be equally successful, which will be great. As far as individual interventions, we're definitely encouraging people to consider their risk profile, work with their medical providers to figure out what steps they should be taking, especially whether that considers getting vaccinated or taking booster shots. But as of now, those are not required for camp. And just to clarify that, the COVID vaccination is not required for camp. Our standing vaccination policy, as has been for the last several years, is that Tdap and MMR are required. But the COVID vaccine is not required, say, on that, but it is certainly recommended. And if individuals want to wear masks, we're certainly not going to tell anybody that they cannot, whether that's indoors or outdoors or in congested settings. That's going to be up to an individual level of choice as we go through that. So that's what we've talked through for now. We'll continue talking with our medical team, and as anything changes or gets finalized, we'll let you know. At this point, we've not made any decision to do any pre-camp testing or arrival testing as we did last summer. The logistics around that are, I think, getting a little bit more challenging. But again, if that situation changes, we'll be sure to let you know as soon as we can. But at this point, we haven't locked that in and are not planning on it. As far as registrations go, registrations are online through Double Knot. And as we have for the last couple of years, we are taking roster information from Double Knot to make that happen. So whatever information you're putting in is what we're going to be pulling for rosters. That means it's important that you go back through, and if you haven't already, make sure you have contact information put in there for scouts and for leaders, because that's the information we're going to be pulling from when we're sending out information ahead of time or trying to contact people. So try to make sure that that is as accurate as it can be as you go through. I know some people earlier in the registration were putting in some placeholder information, especially for like dates of birth or BSA ID numbers for leaders. And as we're getting closer, if you can go back through and make sure that that's put in with that actual information, that would help us a lot. For any leaders who are attending, so that's anyone who is 18 or older, it's very important that we make sure that they're also registered. So that's the reason we're asking for that BSA member ID number. That does two things. It fulfills two statutory requirements we have. Well, a statutory and then sort of a BSA regulatory. So BSA asks us to make sure that any leaders are A, registered, and B, have completed youth protection training. The registration also runs them through a criminal background check and the volunteer screening database with the VSA. That also covers a New Hampshire requirement that any volunteers in camp settings have gone through a criminal background check. So that is those requirements combined why we ask that any adults who are coming with your unit to camp are registered with your unit or with a unit with the same chartering organization. So if you are, there's a troop also chartered with the same chartering organization, and you have a leader who is registered with a troop coming with the pack, that's okay. We'll be able to find that. If you have a leader who is registered in a different pack or registered in a district, we do ask that they be registered at that charter organization, because that tells us that that charter organization has approved that leader to work with your youth in that program, since they are the ones who receive that. Med forms are just up on my list, but the quick answer to that is not yet, but we're going to work on getting that information to you. As far as YPT and background checks, if you've turned that information into council and you see that registration in my.scouting, that's where we're going to be looking for that information as well. So we typically are going to go to first is that YPT aging report for your unit. If you don't have access to that report, either the key 3 for your unit or a key 3 delegate for your unit should have access to that. So you should be able to look it up there or ask one of those people to help you pull that report.
So just to clarify, sorry, with the background checks, if they have a BSA number as an adult, they've already gone through the background check. Is that correct?
If they've turned in a BSA adult application, that is either done or in process.
Is that turned in online? Like, I have no way of knowing if they turned it in or not. So how would I know if the background check has been completed?
So if they show up as registered with your unit, not when they first go in and log in and make an application and take youth protection, it's going to assign them a number. When that number shows up in your unit roster, that means that registration has gone through. So by that point, that background check is either cleared or is in process, because the registrars put that information in for your unit.
Brett, sorry to interrupt. There is a useful tool for that in my scouting on one of the roster pages. I can't remember which, but there's actually a little shield icon that pops up next to the name of people whose background check is passed. And it says pending when it's not there. So you can use that to double check, or your key 3 can get on there and see that.
So that would be under that. Used to be membership manager, thinking is now that roster tool. I know they made some updates to that. So that's the newer one. I hadn't heard of that. That's good. So that registration piece you can look for there, and that's where we're going to be looking for that same sort of information on our end. Certainly for in-council units, for out-of-council units, we might ask for that YPT aging report to help us piece that information together. For the medical form, which is being turned in online this year, because these systems don't talk to each other yet, we are going to go in on the back end and start comparing lists. And our goal is to share information with the unit leaders to say, here are the people who we have medical forms for, and here are the people who we do not. Unfortunately, that system's not just integrated for you to see in real time, but we are going to work on getting that information to unit leaders to help them do that. When I sent those out, which was about last month, at first I sent it out to every parent email that was in Double Knot. So if there was a parent email with a scout, that email should have gone to them.
Quick question on that, Brett.
Yes.
So when they update Part C, how do they just fax that over, or how do they enter that info for the doctor's information?
So what that meant, web form did, and I had it pulled up and then it disappeared in my tabs.
I didn't know we were doing it online until you just said that. So
gotcha. As they're filling it in, it's basically just going to be a web form for parts A and B.
Yeah.
And then it's going to ask them to upload a file for part C and a vaccination record. So that would either be an image or a scan picture that they can upload along with that form. And if they filled out part of it and saved it, it should let them go back in to log back in and update it, was my understanding.
Awesome, thank you.
Brett, one of my leaders told me today his doctor's appointment is the first week in June.
Okay.
Can I just let you know, or
Yeah,
you're
so
part of it?
what we've typically said in the past is do as much as you can of it beforehand. I'm trying to think if that field is flagged as required and if it's going to let you save it before. And I'm not sure, but we understand sometimes people have appointments that land after that May 31st. Our goal is to have as much of it as we can by then, so that we can start filtering through it. But certainly we'll be following up if a piece is not in by then. It doesn't mean they're not going to be able to come to camp. It just means we're going to be doing that follow-up before we get there.
Brett, can I ask a question
Yes.
on the part C?
Yes.
I was at a troop meeting, and so I don't know if there's a difference between Carpenter and Hidden Valley, but they were saying the part C does not mean that the parents need to actually send the form to the doctor's office anymore and be signed. They were saying like the print off that has an electronic signature at the end that you get when you leave the doctor's office for a physical is acceptable. Is that true? Like, do we need to send the physical BSA Part C form to the doctors for the signature? Or is it an electronic signature on whatever their last physical document or physical appointments, like print off document acceptable?
My understanding was that it should still be the BSA AHMR Part C.
That was
If that
mine too.
is-
So that's why I was surprised to hear that. So I wanted to ask the question out loud.
Yeah, that's been my understanding, and I can follow up on that again.
I need to actually get them submitted to that point, so I may answer it on my own before then. But okay, thank you.
Load 10, but I'm gonna make sure I keep all my notes in the same place.
Another quick question,
so-
Brett, sorry.
Yeah.
My parents are gonna be handing me all their forms because I just told them to print them out, fill them out. Can I upload that stuff info in? Or do they have to do it?
I'm
I'll
not
just,
sure if you
I'll
can
just have them do it.
upload it on behalf of a parent because it's gonna ask for basically a digital signature. in
Okay,
that
yep.
sense.
All right, then I will just have them do it.
That would
They
be.
did see your email. They did
ideal on our
comment,
side.
so. All right, thank you.
A weird question. So I asked my doctor if they still had a copy of the one I sent from last year because I don't have a doctor's appointment until July. So I was just gonna submit the one that I submitted to camp last year. Is there a way to get a copy of what was submitted last year? Because naturally they don't have a copy at the doctor's office.
Those are in a box somewhere.
Oh.
And the only reason I say somewhere is because I personally don't know exactly where that box is right now. Steve would know exactly where that box is. It would be a little difficult for us to find it. It is. And that's part of why we're trying to move towards a digital system is so that it's easier for us to pull up and locate and not quite as tedious when we have to.
I'll see what I can do with the doctor.
I know.
I had to submit, so I had to submit one that's based on a physical from last year, and then as soon as I get the other one done, I have to submit that. That's correct, right?
When are you coming to campus? I don't
August.
remember off the top of my head. August.
Okay.
So if you, I would say if you uploaded like a pending page or, waited to submit it until then, if it won't let you submit it without the Part C for now, you could do that. I don't know as if you need to upload one from last year to then update with a new one
Okay, so I can,
versus just updating with the new one. Or
it'll
just
be
submitting
like
with the new one.
over a year then? When I go to camp, it'll be over a year old. Or should I just wait to submit everything all together
I might wait to submit it in that
in
case, I
July,
might wait to
even
submit
though that's so late? Okay, thank you.
it. I'm sure it won't be the latest med form we receive either. And the other thing I want to make sure I said about Part C, and that's a great point to it. That signature on Part C is going to be valid for 12 months by calendar month. So if you had a med form that was signed in July of last year and you were attending camp in July of this year, that would still be valid. You could still use that same Part C. If you were attending into August or in August, you would then need a new one if it was July last year. So that 12 calendar month by month, not by date, is what we're looking for on that. And just jumping on some of the questions I see here. If YPT expires in December, do you need to do another one? So our requirement for camp is that youth protection training is current and valid. So if it expires in December, that meets our requirement for camp. The DWC requirement that it be done annually is what might flag there. But for our camp purposes, if you've been registered by DWC and they ran that, that's all well and good. It's a green check mark in that YPT manager that meets our need. Questions there. Good questions. Hopefully I can get them up to answers. Excellent. Couple other things I wanted to make sure I said around registrations. The bridge program registrations are also being done in Double Knot. So again, it's not too late to add anyone to that if you wanted to. Right now, I think the registrations are set up to close off on May 31st. But what likely will happen, we'll take a look, see where numbers are and make sure everything looks okay. And then I'll probably open the window to be able to make changes. So if you had to go in and make any more edits, add more people, there may still be a window to do that. We just want to make sure that there's still room in each of those weeks before we go ahead and do that. Right now, it looks like week 1 is pushing that a little bit, but we'll still probably be fine there. So you'll probably be able to make edits to your registration a little bit after once I go through, tweak those edit dates, but you won't be able to make a new registration as in a new group unless you let us know so that we can flag that. And the other thing I'll say around that, interestingly, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a spike in individual parents registering as a new pack while the pack is already in a registration, which is been interesting to me. I haven't seen this as much in years past, so I don't know when that's happening. If you are in contact with parents and encouraging them to register, encourage them to talk to the person in the pack who's registered, and then hopefully next year when we have our new system, we won't have to worry about that. In any case, we'll figure it out on the back end. We'll make sure everyone gets put together into one pack, but just a little interesting note I noticed. Other note on medications, as far as medical stuff. So there's the medical forms, but also medications. Any meds that are coming to camp will need to be checked in with the nurse, with the medical staff on arrival. And that's for anyone who's coming to camp. So that is camper medications. That is also adult medications and den chief medications. So make sure you're prepared for that. Any prescriptions that are coming in need to be in their original container with the prescription. So please do not take all of your meds and dump them into a Ziploc bag to carry them to camp. It will make the check-in process a little bit tedious, and the nurse will not be super happy with you. And we like our nurses. We want to keep them around. So help us. That'll be great. Prescriptions in original containers as they come in. If you need any accommodations, and that might be a medical accommodation, that might be a dietary accommodation, that might be some kind of accessibility accommodation. I'm not sure if the web form got lost somewhere in the links over the changes we made over this year, but if it is not up there now, we'll make sure that it gets put up. Otherwise, you can shoot me an email or put in a support ticket and it'll make its way to me. Try to let us know as early as you can, or at least 2 weeks before, if there's some kind of issue like that. The earlier we know about it, the easier it is for us to work with you and make it happen. Our food service, we're with Cafe Services again this summer, and they have always been awesome at helping work with dietary accommodations, and we make sure we'll we'll get you in touch with the cooks, and they'll work with you to figure out, what can they provide and what might you as a parent want to bring in to supplement. We can make storage space for any supplemental food you're bringing in for particular situations. And the earlier we know about those, the easier it is for us to help work through this.
Will MedPass be in the dining room again this year? Because that was phenomenal last year.
It was very convenient last year. I think we'll be able to do that again this year. I think. So I'll have to talk to our nurses, but I think that's something we can manage again this year. If it is, we'll try and do that. What certainly can be. Anna's question here, if female scouts are attending and there's only one female leader, if something happens and that female leader is not able to attend, touch base with us, let us know. That's a situation where we can try and, mix groups around, pair up groups, or try to provide some staffing to help cover. We definitely would do our best to make that situation work and make it so kids can't attend camp.
I saw somebody ask about the updated bathing suit policy. What's the word
Sure.
on that?
I was going to flag into that when I got to program, but that's a great segue and a great opportunity. Katie Unfried is here. So Katie, if you would be able to talk about that, that would be an awesome time to do so.
Yeah, sure. Council is talking about a updated bathing suit policy that includes sun tops as well as your traditional bathing suit bottoms for everyone across the board. Great for sun protection, great for our youth. Brett, I don't actually know if there's a final decision on this. I know that was the proposed situation, and that is the plan last I heard was to encourage that. If you have more details, go ahead and share them, but that's what I know.
I don't have more details because that was the last I had heard about it as well.
Very good. So stay tuned, but definitely encouraging sun tops this summer. Like rash guards, t-shirts, whatever works, but keeping a little more coverage on our kids.
Can I ask a clarification on that, Katie?
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that this is coming about because there is uneven standards for boys versus girls in scouting. I hear you saying that that you're recommending swim tops for all scouts, but is there still the requirement that girls have to cover their midsections, but boys do not? Is that still a requirement? Like, I've had girls turned away from the waterfront because they were showing their midsection the first year. And so we're very conscious of that.
I'm sorry to hear people were turned away. We're trying to make sure that
Right.
everyone can
Nope.
enjoy the waterfront and get a chance to do that aquatic stuff. The official policy from National for aquatics,
It's still the same.
it's still the same. National hasn't changed anything. This is a Daniel Webster Council special edition.
I
So
appreciate that
changed,
profusely.
we're adding the shirts.
Thank you. We've been asking for this since girls were brought into scouting because it is a double standard. So I appreciate that Daniel Webster is trying to address it. Thank you.
I think I can maybe add a little bit of clarification to it. It's been bandied about quite a bit as a policy at the staff level, the council staff level, and I think it will be a requirement at Camp Carpenter this summer. It'll probably be a recommendation at Hidden Valley and Camp Bell this year, but I think next year it'll be a or a requirement there too. But at Carpenter, I think you can count on it being a requirement that everybody wear a sun shirt this year.
Is there a definition on that? Like, because I know for girls, a lot of times it's just like like a 1-inch wide strap here, or is it like you have to have your shoulders covered?
I don't have that specific information. I'm sure it will be put in writing to everybody as it happens, exactly what that means. But I think it's going to be a t-shirt type thing for everybody. I think there's two reasons for it. One, Danielle mentioned, and the other one is a youth protection situation. as well, because if a youngster can't put on sunscreen on himself, staff members can't really help with that from a youth protection program or standpoint. So it's kind of a twofer. So I think as much coverage as we can possibly make it makes it fair, and it's also a health issue. So our risk protection people, committee people like that idea. So I think it's going to happen. But I think you'll see more of it in writing. If you haven't seen it yet, I know it's in its final stages of being finalized and will be published if it hasn't been yet. If you haven't seen it, it's coming.
Is there a way to make sure that people outside Daniel Webster Council gets that information? Because if you have people coming from other states, we don't see anything.
If you're registered for camp, somebody will hear about it.
Okay, because like the only way I knew about these meetings was that every month I was going to see if something was updated. So I've been registered for a while and I wasn't getting any communication at all.
I'm going to put that one in Brett's hands.
I'm not blaming you, Brett. I'm just asking the question.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think you have to sign up on the website to get the emails.
And the other question I saw come through here on the swimsuit policy was, is that requirement for adults as well? And not totally sure where that conversation has ended up on that policy piece. Bill, I don't know if you have any more insight on that.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, Brett?
Is that policy going to be for adults as well, was the question.
I believe it is. It's been talked about that way. I think that's the assumption that it will be as well.
T-shirt will suffice, because I don't know that I've ever seen a swim shirt and a t-shirt style for older ladies.
Land's End. Land's End has an excellent selection. Like my family, we neck to knees because we have skin cancer issues. So Land's End is great for women.
And I definitely sympathize with that. This is a later time in the season for that kind of update. And I made a note to push that we get that in writing and sent out to as many people as we can, as quickly as we can. Help everyone with their planning process. So we will definitely work on that. Any other questions on that before we move on to other tidbits? Okay. Yeah, doesn't mean you can't ask a question later if you think of it. That'll be okay. I want to talk a little bit about what the arrival process, especially the Sunday process, will look like. So general schedule for Sunday is that the earliest time for packs to arrive to begin setting things up, to begin dropping gear off, is going to be 8 a.m. That's the time we aim to have someone available, usually by the office, by Nuttall Lodge. So if they're not standing outside on the road, they'll probably be in that area to be able to give you a vehicle pass to help make sure you know where your campsite is, and we'll allow one vehicle per pack on the road at that time to be able to go out to sites and drop off gear. So if you have 2 leaders coming, and that's what we sort of plan on lunch that day for, is 2 leaders per pack. So if you have 2 leaders coming and they both have a car full of gear, that doesn't mean that you can't end up getting both cars down. It just means we ask that you only have 1 car out on the road at a time. So we'll give you 1 vehicle pass. You can drive 1 car out, unload the gear, come back and park it, pass that off, drive the other car out, unload the gear, and so on. One of the things we strongly encouraged last summer that a lot more packs did, and always encourage packs to explore this option, is if you can find a way to gather your scouts gear, especially main bulky gear, before Sunday. So if you have an opportunity to have parents drop off large gear, whether those are in big Tupperware bins or whether those are tote bags or things that would be difficult to carry. You can load that into whether it's a trailer or a truck and have one leader then Sunday morning go and deliver that to the site. That can be really, really convenient. I think a lot of packs found that helpful last summer. It's something we'd encourage again. That said, this summer we are planning on having it, so that parents can help carry gear out because we're able to loosen up a little bit on some of those visitor restrictions. So we are planning to be able to do that again. But if you found that preloading and getting that gear delivered that morning was helpful, certainly something you could continue to explore and do. At 9:15, so between 8 and 9:15, sort of the drop off, start to set stuff up. At 9:15, we're going to have the leaders meeting in Manning Hall, and we'll be going over a lot of the required information. We'll talk a little bit more about the check-in process. We'll make sure we review emergency procedures and the things the state of New Hampshire and the BSA and ACA tell us that we need to make sure you're aware of. We'll have a chance to talk with the nurse and check in on where medical forms are at, get a sense of what information we're looking for, what we're going to need as we head along there. So that typically has been somewhere in the 45-minute to an hour range. Again, that meeting for 2 leaders is the goal, 2 leaders from each pack to be available there to make sure that they get that information. Our goal is to provide you with your program schedule at that meeting as well as a lot of miscellaneous fun program forms you might need throughout the week. After that meeting, in the past, we've had the opportunity for leaders to go down and do some checks. I think we'll be able to do that again. That's our tentative plan. So we'll be able to go and do that. That leaders meeting is at 9:15 on Sunday of your week of camp. 9:15. And that will be up in Manning Hall. We'll also have staff there to help you find that, but if you want to lock that in your head. At 11:30, we'll have lunch, and we will provide your pack with 2 meal tickets to that lunch. If you need more than 2 tickets to that lunch, please let me know ahead of time, either me or Alex Ager, as we're reaching out to finalize details, because we have a smaller crew and we have a more exact count for that particular meal. So if you know that you're bringing more people, if you're bringing more leaders, that is something that helps us to know ahead of time, and we can make sure that we can give you some additional meal tickets. Meal tickets in the summer are $15 a piece, so we would charge for additional people for that Sunday lunch. Then, after that lunch, somewhere between the 12:30 and 4:30 time, we will have the sort of waves of arrival. So we're going to do like we did last summer. We'll have a check-in time. We'll have a few units arriving at a time to be able to gather in a central area, do their quick check-in, and then go to their site to work on dropping stuff off and getting ready to go. We found that worked pretty well. Helped keep waiting times down for a bunch of people, and so we're going to continue trying that until it doesn't work for some reason, and then we'll make some more changes and continue to make it work. So your pack will have a time. It'll be sort of on the half hours, so either 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, 3:30. We have any 4:30s. We can even usually have 3:30. Usually somewhere in the 12:30 to 3:30 range. And our goal is to get that information to you, that time block to you, 2 weeks before your arrival, along with your campsite assignments.
Right, I have a question about that. We have one family that is sending, the dad and the mom are coming as leaders, and then there are 2 children. Do they have to go back home and get the kids, or can they bring them with them, or what happens with that?
So they don't necessarily, and we don't want this to be inconvenient to folks. We don't encourage people to bring scouts or usually even denchies for the leaders meeting in the morning. It's not the most exciting programmatic piece. Kids tend to get a little or more than a little bored during it. So if one of the things that a lot of packs do is try to coordinate with another parent from the pack who might be able to bring the kids along, later with that main arrival. If that works and that's not an inconvenience, that can be a great option. If you need to bring scouts along in the morning, it can happen. We can do that. Again, just make sure we know how many people you need for lunch, so we can make sure we're planning for the right number of meals.
Okay.
So if you do need to bring a scout or a den chief, one of your children or some of your children with you, that can happen. We do not forbid it. We just don't recommend it. As scouts are arriving at whatever check-in time that is, main goals there will be to check information on the roster, make sure that everybody who is planning on being there is there, and that we know everybody who is there. So if there's people who have showed up that we did not have registered, we're going to make sure we have that information so that we can follow up on that. If there are people who are registered who are not there, we're going to make sure we follow up on that as well. If there are scouts who are not there at the arrival time, we're going to try to touch base. If that's something like they're stuck in traffic or they had a baseball game or something that we're aware of, that's fine. We'll usually move the rest of the pack through check-in. We'll follow up and catch that scout up as they arrive. If we have no idea where they are, we're going to try to make sure we get a sense of where they are, and then we can make a plan as we go. And yes, we're going to plan on having separate check-in locations again this summer. I don't know as if they'll be the exact same 3 ones or if they'll move around a little bit, but those ones seem to work pretty well, so they might be the same. As we're checking in, we're also going to be making sure we're issuing bracelets. So we use plastic bracelets to indicate people who are staying for the full week. That's part of our security processes, so we can keep tabs on who's supposed to be there, and therefore also identify people who maybe aren't supposed to be there. If you have leaders who are rotating through the week, they won't get a wristband, they'll get a badge. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the Sunday meeting ahead of time too, but that's part of our goal in checking rosters and information, is to make sure we can account for those people and help make sure that we're keeping secure in the 220 acres of wilderness in Manchester, New Hampshire. And once your group's checked in, we'll touch base with the nurse, we'll do medical checks, and you'll have an opportunity to go start setting up at campsites. A couple notes for campsites to be aware of. Many of you have been there before and seen them before, but if you haven't, I'll give a brief description. We have 2-person canvas tents. They are about 9 feet by 9 feet. I think it's more like 9 and almost a half feet in one direction and like just shy of 9 feet in another direction. Canvas tents with cots. Typically, people want to provide bug nets. We definitely recommend those. Mosquitoes are, there's a lot of mosquitoes sometimes, depending on how much it rains and how long it's been. So we definitely recommend bug netting. There's a couple different styles of it you might see. There's a style that ties to the frame on top. That's fine. You have a frame over the cots, so that works well. Just make sure you have string or paracord or something to be able to tie that. We discourage people from using zip ties because they tend to get stuck and can tear things, and so we tend to discourage those. But make sure you have some mechanism for securing that. The other style you might see are ones that are propped up. So you use poles on sort of the 4 corners to prop up the bug net. If you have something like that, people often find that like a tennis ball on top of that pole can help prop it up without ripping through the bug net. Things like that are fine. And please avoid using duct tape to secure things. It just doesn't tend to come off of the framing or the legs of the cots super well, and you want to avoid having this patina of duct tape acquire over the years. So we discourage duct tape for that purpose. May still be very worthwhile to bring duct tape. There's lots of things that might be. And yes, you don't have to bring tents. We do provide tents. I would say as we check in, there's usually, depending on exactly how we pull them off the pile, there's usually a spread of newer and older cots around the campsites. So if we need to swap a couple around, we can usually do that. And if we find that there's not one around that's suitable, we'll go grab it. We can usually manage that ahead of time. So yes, we provide tents, canvas wall tents. You don't have to bring tents. That said, some people do choose to bring tents either. They look sort of like that. It's like clipping into the background a little bit, but I can see it. But some people do choose to bring their own tents, and that was a good example of that. Either to set up outside or on a platform that we haven't set up a tent on, or to set up inside of one of the campus tents. People find that these sort of dome style tents, if you can see Melissa's there, tend to be really effective bug nets because they're fully enclosed. Another thing people often do is get a tarp, just like a plastic blue tarp, to put underneath the cots over the platform, which is a wooden platform. It has gaps in it. By putting a plastic tarp underneath, you help prevent some of the bugs, mosquitoes that might come up from under the platform as well. So that's a common strategy to both those are fine. And if I didn't just say it, if you are bringing your own tent, you are welcome to set it up either on a blank platform or in some other area of the campsite that is not highly vegetated. Actually, not to put it on top of a bunch of flowers, or on top of the lady slippers. Try to find a reasonable spot for it. But you are welcome to bring tents in addition. Our goal is to provide you with enough tents to pair up within youth protection categories. So that means we'll have one tent for every 2 youth males, 1 tent for every 2 youth females, 1 tent for every 2 adult males, 1 tent for every 2 adult females, 1 tent for every 2 den chief males, 1 tent for every 2 den chief females, because they tend to be just far enough in age from the youth that they shouldn't be tenting together. And so we aim to provide you with enough tenting for you to be able to assign and spread out within youth protection guidelines, which again are making sure that buddy pairs are by those youth protection groups and no more than 2 years apart in age. So if you have a wee below, they probably shouldn't be tenting with the Wolf Scout, and we leave that up to you to figure out and arrange within your pack. If you need some help with that, you can certainly reach out to us. Be happy to give you some tips and guidance. If you have an uneven number of scouts in one of those categories, it is okay for a scout to be in their own tent. Some scouts appreciate that, especially maybe some of the slightly older scouts. Or if you don't have scouts who want to be in their own tent, we can usually fit a 3rd cot into one of the tents. That's a common strategy as well. So we slide it in the middle and have 3 people in one tent. It's a little cramped, but sometimes they prefer that. So those are options you might have along the way.
Last time we had 3 people in one tent. We had a separate tent for them to put their gear and change in. So that helped.
Yes, and if you have an uneven number and that's what you wanted to do, that, at least the way I usually did my math, that should work out, because we would have given you 2 tents for that number of scouts, and so should be able to make that. We do try to have extra tents around as well, but depending on how full the week is and the campsite is, it doesn't always work out. We don't have anything specific as far as COVID policy for scouts and tents. It can be a great reason to try to spread people out, maybe try to avoid having free and the recommendation we had last year was that when you have 2 scouts in a tent, they sleep head to foot. So if one person's sleeping with their feet going towards this side of the tent, the other person's sleeping with their feet going that side of the tent, so their respiratory systems are a little bit further away from each other. That could generally be a good practice. But it's not something we have necessarily in writing. I haven't heard that from our medical team at this point. Our tents tend to have a fair amount of ventilation and throughput, especially with the platforms under them in any case. Any questions about sort of the tent, the campsite setup, any of that stuff? Excellent, good. A few program things. I'll get this link pasted into the chat here. If you have not already had the chance to fill out the program choice form, it is via Google form this year. you should be able to find that link right there. And this is for the scheduled portions of the program during the day. So the way the typical day schedule is going to work is there's going to be 3 scheduled blocks between breakfast and lunch. And then after lunch, there'll be a siesta block, which is an opportunity to have some downtime or do some campsite cleaning or get a bunch of slushies and stuff at the trading post or all of the above. And then 2 more scheduled blocks. So that's 5 scheduled blocks a day. And after that, snack time and then free time, which is unscheduled time where you'll be able to go from area to area, depending on which ones might be open that day. Those 5 times in the morning, as we go through the week, there's a certain number of programs that we'll sort of try to block in as best as we can. So we typically make an effort to have every pack go to shooting sports, archery twice and BBs twice and the waterfront twice, and some of those that are pre-filled. But then there's also some flexibility around that. And that's what this program choice form is in those other spots, what do you want scheduled during the week? So there's lots of elective programs along with that. There's also some pack-led activities in there as well. If you wanted to do those things like time for a pack-led nature hike or scavenger hunt. Or, one of the ones that I often get questions about that is showers. It is an option on the program choice form. It does not mean that you need to sign up to have a time to use the showers. You certainly are welcome to bring it back to use the showers during free time or during siesta or in the evening or morning time. Some packs like to have it on their schedule to tell their scouts that, look, it says we have to go to the showers now. If you want it to show up on your schedule, you can mark it on that form, and we're happy to make that happen for you. That's why it appears on there. You don't need to sign up for it to be able to use the showers. You'll be able to use the shower. And I think most of the rest of it sort of lines up and makes sense. The museum is also one of the things that we try to put on there. Volunteers who run the scouting museum out of the lower section of the dining hall next to the scout store. And, there's a lot of really cool stuff there, and they like to go around sometimes. I think they give out pins if you finish a scavenger hunt too. Kristen always likes to acquire the pins every once in a while. So that can be a great opportunity there as well. Our theme this summer is weird science, and it's definitely a little later on. I have a pack than I had hoped, but I do have artwork. I'm gonna pull it up. We're gonna get a preview before it's totally finalized, but the patch should look something like this. Weird sciencey. I should remember the style of the speaker, but when I changed majors from chemistry to music, I totally forgot all of the names of these different beakers. I know it looks
It's
cool.
an Erlenmeyer flask.
It's an Erlenmeyer flask. There we go. So we've got an Erlenmeyer, I'm going to practice saying that a few times, an Erlenmeyer flask inside of an Erlenmeyer flask with the old timer. It's a grand old time. We've got our patches. We're going to be exploring all sorts of weird and crazy sciencey things. So especially opportunities to maybe blow up the Scoutmasters, Cupmasters toothpaste and stuff like that. And absolutely, let's talk about our evening programs. So I'll get to that in just a second. On Monday evening, we typically do a couple of things. We have our Scout Zone service, which is not a particular type of religious service, just a general Scout Zone, recognizing Scouts' duty to be reverence. Our goal is to pull from lots of different traditions and make it too specific to anyone so that it's welcoming to everyone. And then after that, we have our Cub Carnival. We'll have lots of carnival games spread out and about. They're awesome. They're fun. There's the toss a duck. I think there's some kind of donkey. I forget what they all are. Scouts meander around to all these different stations, and it's a grand old time. On Tuesday night is our theme night. So that is the night that we've typically invited people to dress up, to bring a costume. This does not have to be an elaborate costume. It certainly could be an elaborate costume. So challenge by choice there as to how much you want to do. But we encourage people to find some costume that goes along with the theme. So maybe crazy lab coats or crazy Einstein hair or electric bolts. I don't know, whatever you come up with, totally up to your interpretation. Weird science. And then we'll have some activities that hopefully try to connect to that weird science theme a bit. In the past, we've had something ended up similar to our Cup Carnival, where we have a lot of stations that groups can go around. We've also tried to bring in the OA to do an activity then. That's not necessarily a weird science activity, but we hope to be able to work with them and bring them in again. And we might try to see if we can bring in some kind of demonstrations. Maybe I'm thinking something involving like liquid nitrogen, steam, smoke, and billowing things. We're working on some ideas. So we'll see what we can come up with, but we encourage you to come in costume and be excited and make weird science happen. And we also do our ice cream social on Tuesday night as well. Scouts love ice cream. I also love ice cream, so it works out pretty well. On Wednesday night, we have pack out night. So Wednesday night is the one night where you will not be eating in the dining hall, on wood, as long as weather cooperates, where we will provide you with food to cook in your own campsites. That typically, and plan is again this year, will be hot dogs and s'mores. So we'll provide you with hot dogs and buns and condiment packets, and the scouts can all go find their hot dog sticks and roast them over a fire and have a grand old time of eating in the campsites. As we've been able to sort of pull back on some visitor restrictions, this is a night where some packs choose to have families come in to participate and maybe bring in some extra food. And that's certainly something you could do. That our plan is for that to be available again this year. Anyone who is coming to camp, we want to make sure that they are signing into the office. We want to make sure we're signing in visitors. So just make sure they sort of stop by the office on their way and check in and participate for the evening. Some packs choose to do that. Some packs choose not to do that, depending on how your scouts are handling the week, especially in terms of sort of the homesickness. We like to call it revicitis, the homesickness piece. Some scouts are excited to see their families at camp and are okay with them then leaving for the night to stay for another night. And sometimes it can create some problems as well. So some packs have chosen not to bring in other families. And that's totally up to your pack, how you want to manage that. If you want to tell families that they can come in and bring food and join in for the evening, you can do that. If you don't want to tell them that, you don't have to tell them that. That's up to your pack as far as how you want to manage that.
Brett, is pizza?
Yeah.
Is pizza still an option?
Pizza is still an option. The
Oh, yeah.
Carpenter House of Pizza on Wednesday night, if in addition to the hot dogs that we would normally provide you, you would like pizza made by the Carpenter House of Pizza, or we will deliver it to your campsites. You can order cheese pizzas for $15 each, or pepperoni or veggie pizzas for $16 each. Super delicious, super awesome, delivered to your campsite, along with your choice of Sprite, Coca-Cola, or Diet Coke. I had to remember the three options there. That's always been a hit. It's super, super fun. And I don't know if I get to go deliver those this year. There might be someone else delivering them. It's kind of sad. I really enjoy getting to drive around, deliver pizzas. Someone will deliver those pizzas to your campsite, and it'll be a grand old time. And that's Wednesday night. Thursday night is, for most of our scouts, their last night. So when programs starts wrapping up on Thursday, how we've typically handled checkout is if you have any scouts who are leaving before 4:30 p.m., we're going to sign them out through the office. After 4:30, we sort of hand that checkout responsibility to your pack and to your pack leaders. So if you have parents who are picking up their scouts and leaving at 4:30, they're going to check in with you and make sure that that's all happening. But we're hopeful that they'll stick around and stay through our family barbecue and our closing campfire. So our family barbecue, the plan is that we'll start serving food at 5:30. That's been in the dining hall, typically has things like barbecue chicken or sausage or pulled pork with macaroni salad and watermelon and cookies. It's a grand old time. For any scouts or leaders who are there for the week, so anyone who has a wristband or badge who's there for the week, they're already included in that meal count. Any visitors who are coming in, any parents or siblings or family who are coming along, That will be that $15 a ticket for that meal. And then after that, somewhere around 6:40, 6:45, depending on how long the meal takes and when that sort of wraps up, we'll move to the closing campfire down at our campfire ring, where we invite PAX to put on skits, songs, and cheers, and we'll have the staff jump in with a few as well. That's always a great time. So we're excited to be able to bring families back into those traditions, our barbecue and closing campfire. Our Bridge Scouts, so Arrow of Light Scouts who are staying for the Bridge program, will be staying through that. So at the end of the closing campfire, we'll dismiss them sort of off to the side to organize, and then we'll dismiss the rest of the camp. And then the Bridge Scouts will go through the first parts of the bridge ceremony. It'll start in the council ring and sort of take them around camp a bit. Eventually, they'll end up back at their campsite where staff will be making snacks in Dutch ovens. This is typically like fried dough and popcorn and French fries, all cooked out over a fire. So it's like a fun little social activity with the staff. And then they'll get to go to sleep. In the morning, Friday morning, we have extra program for them. We do a round robin, things like air rifles and the GPS, and first aid, and knots and lashing, some of these sort of more scout BSA focused skills, or things that they're allowed to do as people as Arrow of Lights that the younger scouts aren't allowed to do. So that's a great time. The closing ceremony for Bridge is going to start around 11 o'clock on Friday at the parade field is where we're hoping to do it this year. And it'll start around then. That'll be dismissing at about 11:30. So it will be a before lunch dismissal for those Bridge Scouts on Friday. And I think that's sort of the evening program bits and some of the checkout bits. Questions on any of that? Yes.
Do we have those, so of our large 22 scouts, 12 of them are Bridge Scouts. So are we, I know it's a big group this year. Do we have them pack up for Thursday as well, and they have to move all their stuff for Thursday night, or do they get to stay where they are?
Yeah, but just her
Because
demeanor
we got
upstairs.
4
she's like
adults staying.
sitting outside of people's
So,
rooms, and
Scouts who are staying for
it's never
the
bothered
Bridge
her
program,
before.
they are going to reallocate for that evening. What we do is we put them into patrols.
So what
and then
shoes
have
would
those
you like
patrols sort of
the next
camp
couple
together.
days?
Mike, you're not
So-
muted.
So what we typically encourage them to do is to pack up just what they need for that one night. And so they don't have to load all of their gear. Parents coming in Thursday for the campfire, they can take that home with them. And then they'll set up their tent for the evening. And usually just a day pack is about all they'll need for that one extra night. But yes, that is then what we've done, and what we're planning on is that those scouts will pack up from where their site was with their pack, so that they can sort of set up camp for the night with their patrol. Depending on the sizes of packs and what campsites you're in, those might end up being at about the same spot. What we've generally done is, if your pack is in the campsite that they'll be staying in, this is usually Chicoroa, unless it's a particularly large weekend, they might also need another campsite. So if your pack was already in Chicoroa, what we've typically encouraged them to do is to sort of pack up their gear and be ready to move tents, because they might not end up in sort of the same spot of the campsite. But they don't need to like take all of their gear totally out of the campsite and then back in. Yes, and we'll talk more about those details during the week at camp as well. And something that many packs choose to do, if you have families that are coming in Wednesday night, and I believe this is where the name Pack Out Night came from. If you have parents that are coming in Wednesday night who want to take extra gear with them, things that the scouts don't need for Thursday, and they can lug out and pack out some of that gear, so they don't have to pick up quite as much with their scout on Thursday as they're checking out and doing all that stuff. Program schedules, like your day-by-day schedule of programs, we're going to have that for you during that leaders meeting Sunday morning. So Kristen usually works on getting those schedules done in the week ahead of time, making sure that those are all finalized and hopefully don't have too many quirks in them. And we'll get those to you on your check-in day. Any other questions at this point about things I've said or things I haven't said?
I do
Yeah.
have a question. So are we gonna get this written beforehand? What I mean by that is I need to know what to bring with me to the camp out. So am I gonna get a list of what I need?
Sure. In the leader's guide, and I will copy and paste the link to that in the chat now. There is a suggested packing list. Probably could have shortened that link a little, but there it is. There is a suggested packing list, and I forget exactly what page it's on. Pages 21 and 22. 22 and 23. So the first page is a camper packing list of what should basically every scout bring. Make sure they have enough clothing. They have towels. They have a raincoat. Don't assume it's not going to rain. It's a dangerous assumption. And so on. And scouts often, or a lot of families often, try to like pack days of clothing together. So if you take all of the Monday clothes and put them into a gallon Ziploc bag and label it, and then the Tuesday clothes, that can be a helpful way to do it too. So that first list is per scout. What are some of the things they should bring? The second page is a pack equipment list of what are some things that overall one of the leaders or all the leaders of the pack might want to try to make sure that they bring together. So those are things like, a tarp, a group first aid kit, some downtime activities, maybe some duct tape, extra rope or string to be able to tie bug nets for a scout who might have not brought string or so on. So there's some suggestions for things that the pack might want to bring. Not everyone has to bring on their own.
Brett, I have this in email, so when you get to this email, you can ignore it to you. But scholarships, if we have families that applied for scholarships but have not heard anything back, should they be assuming they did not qualify? Or is scholarships delayed? And will they receive any communication back, positive or negative?
Right, I think I can field that one.
I had a feeling, Phil, you might jump in for this one. Sorry.
Yeah, all of the scholarships have been have been either awarded or declined. And my impression was that notifications had gone out quite some time ago to people. I'm hearing tonight from several different places that not everybody has heard. So I will check on that first thing in the morning and find out what's going on with that. But
So
all
our family should have heard one way or the other, correct? Because we have multiple families that heard nothing.
Yeah, everybody should have heard something by now. I'm not sure what happened. I was under the impression that everybody had heard by now, but obviously that's not the case. So I'll check on that first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
I actually called Camp Carpenter because I needed to know by last week. And they told me over the phone that I had been awarded or I had not been awarded or whatever. But I still have not received the letter that they said they sent out. So I still haven't technically heard.
So I've never in the past even gotten a letter, and I have not gotten one this year, but because I'm the camp coordinator and I did the registration for the pack, once my daughter's campership was approved, it automatically sent me a new receipt showing that she got a campership. So the camp coordinator should have a new receipt if anyone got camperships in your pack.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't heard anything. So, but it sounds like I could call camp tomorrow, because if not, we don't want to turn kids away and we need to start locating money in the next week, which is
Right.
what's hard.
Right. And I'm sending a note right now to Derek to find out what's going on with that. We'll see what happens. But they have been, everybody has been reviewed and either granted money or not by now. So that process is done. In fact, it's been done for over a month, I think. So
Right. And
we did
that's
it-
like, she forwarded me the receipt where she filled it out saying we should have heard by April 20th, I think.
Yeah, it was done around that time. It was, I think the deadline was the 15th and we did it, the committee did it within 3 or 4 days of that date. So I'll find out what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make it happen.
I would say that would be a great spot if someone hasn't heard, sending an email to that support@nhscouting.org, starting one of those tickets in that process would help those people track that through and make sure that gets to all the right people. I know I've got a couple emails about that, and I'll try and forward that through those channels too. But sometimes it takes a little while to process through. If we get it into the system at first, then Tyler's usually good about making sure those go to those places. So.
Brett, I know I emailed you about this. I'm just gonna throw it out there in case anybody here has an answer. Since the camp card deadline got pushed back, I know like we have a bunch of people who sold those and will be using those funds to pay for camp. Does that mean that we get to postpone paying for camp? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, and so unless Phil has something else to add to this, I would say if you have something like that fundraiser where you know you're expecting funds to come in, or you have a scholarship that you know you've received or you've received from a third party that hasn't been credited yet, if you want to use your May 31st payment, sort of account for those. So that means paying less than what the balance says it is in double knot because you know those things are coming in. My understanding is that's fine. Once we get to camp, we're going to be sort of checking those balances and make sure everything tallies up in the end anyway. So if you know you've got some other sources or something's a question mark and you pay a little less to account for that, that's okay in my book, unless Phil tells me that's wrong.
No, I think Brett's making a call right. Just do what you think is necessary. I think I heard, I was texting somebody here about this question, so I didn't quite hear the whole conversation, but if you want an immediate question answered, you can submit a ticket and with specifics, if there's a person you really want to know about, you can submit a ticket and you will get an answer about that person pretty quickly. Because like I said, the information is available. I don't know what happened to the group notifications. Apparently didn't make it out in time, but so if you have a specific person that you want to check on too, just submit a ticket through the ticketing system, and Tyler and Josh will make sure that it gets into the right hands.
Hey, Brett, I have a quick question too.
Yes.
Sent you an email. Pack 33, we have 6 scouts going. One of them is a tiger. His mom is the leader also, and we only have 2 leaders going. But in one of the handbooks, it says that if a parent is attending with the tiger, they cannot be a leader. I'm kind of looking for a little bit of a waiver on that, possibly.
Yeah, so what we can try to do, if you're not able to find another leader there, so we'll often try to pair your pack up in the campsite and with program. So make a note of that here.
Okay, I did email you, and I know you said you're a little behind, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah, so we can work together to find ways to make that work.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And I'll stick around for any questions there are after this as well, but a few other things to throw out there and a couple more links to toss in the chat. These are not new links, but share them now again. For other programs outside of resident camp program, we do have our family camp program. So that's a Friday into Saturday program for scouts and their parents if they're not able to attend with a full pack or they want to come for an extra day. And that typically follows more of an open program area model. We have 3 weekends scheduled for that. That is July 8th to 9th, July 22nd to 23rd, and August 5th to 6th. And those registrations can be found on experiencebasecamp.org under the overnight camp section. And we also have 7 weeks of day camp through Granite Base Camp. that run Monday to Friday. Forget the exact times on that. I believe it's 8 to 4:30 is what's stuck in my head. And we have aftercare available too. I think goes until 6, and that registration can be found at experiencebasecamp.org in the day camp section, which is that second one. We also have our Den Chief training weekend coming up on June 11th to 12th. There's a lot of things going on June 11th. One of those is our Den Chief training weekend. If you have a Den Chief coming with your pack, this is our Camp Carpenter specific sort of Den Chief orientation. So we make sure they know the lay of the camp, give them some tips and tricks, and try and prepare them to be helpful and productive to you as leaders, to give them some roles and some things that they can take on, helping manage scouts and run activities in downtime and so on. So, this is not the national Den Chief training to be trained for the position, but it's a camp specific one that we run there. It's not required that they attend, but we've had a number have gone through it, and a lot of packs that have said it, they found it to be pretty helpful. So that can be an option as well. You can find that on the experiencebasecamp.org overnight registration as well. That same place as family camp registrations on that same page there. And that's June 11th to 12th. The other really big thing on June 11th is our Camp Carpenter Service Day. So this is where our goal is to set up as much as we can so that once we get to staff training, we can spend as much time as we can training and practicing running program, and less time picking things up and putting things down for them to be where they need to be for program. We'll have enough of that to do as it is. If you, whether it's your family or your pack, is able to attend and help out in something large or small, you can email Steve Hamilton, and I make sure I copy that email right. Steve Hamilton, our camp ranger, who helped coordinate all of that and make sure we have project. That email right there, and let him know. So those could be bigger projects, especially things like setting up canvas, getting all the canvas put up on frames. But if we've got younger scouts, they can help out with things as well that might be helping move the trash cans where they need to go. Throwing my pen across the room. That might be sweeping off platforms before you put tents on them. We can find lots of projects for people with lots of different ability levels. Steve also always appreciates when we have skilled peoples, especially carpenters, electricians, plumbers, who might be able to help out with some more specific projects. So if you have any of those particular skills, let Steve know as well. Happy to have you help out for the day. We will be providing lunch for the day on June 11th there. So make sure you RSVP so we have a sense of how many people we need to feed as we go into that. And if you're available for the full day, that's great. If you're available for 1 or 2 hours during the day, you can let us know too, and we can try to work that into our plans.
Hey, Brett, I think Katie is still with us, and if so, she's got some information she wants to share too.
Thanks, Phil. But Brett, do you have a minute? Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to share with all of you that the Aquatics Committee is pushing out a new training to put units in a position where they can do their own swim classification test before they get to camp. Gives your scouts a double chance. They can still do their swim checks at camp on Sunday, but can make things a little bit easier from the Sunday check-in perspective for our summer camp staff and also your units. And it just really opens up aquatics programming during the off season. We are running that training on June 1st. It's a Wednesday at 7 p.m. I'm going to put the link to sign up for that in the chat. It is on Zoom. It's free and it lasts about 40 minutes. And I encourage you to sign up and take it. In order to be able to run those swim checks for your unit, we do ask that you have both this training and also some form of aquatics certification. That could be a lifeguard, it could be a swim coach or a swimming instructor, swimming and water rescue, aquatics instructor. There's a handful of different trainings that count for this, and they're all on that link that I just sent. If no one in your unit has any of those trainings, I recommend reaching out to your troop in your town. A lot of troops have lifeguards that might be willing to help you out with that. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions. But this is a new program this year, and we're hoping it will take off, and we will continue to work with it.
Thank you. It's been really great to see the aquatics committee getting actively involved, and they're doing a lot of great stuff. So, have you?
Sorry, Brett, I'm still messaging things.
Yeah.
Let me
So
just.
I repasted that chat.
Thank you. Try sending that to everyone instead of just Brett. There you go. There's my email. If you have any questions about how this is working, please don't hesitate to reach out.
And a couple last things I want to say. Thank you all for your time. I know this is a longer, bulkier meeting. We've got the recording. We'll make sure we get that uploaded and sent out for you to review later or to share with people who need the information and didn't get. I'll post one more link here, which is the Camp Carpenter Leaders Facebook group. If you're not already on that, it's a great spot to ask questions about camp. There's lots of leaders with lots of experience who can answer lots of those questions. I try to help out and answer the ones that I can too, but sometimes some other leaders get to them faster. So if you've got questions about a registration thing, a camp specific thing, if you've got questions about what's the best type of snacks to bring or what type of box should I bring to make sure that the chipmunks don't wander away with them, there's lots of people who've been at camp for quite a while who have lots of thoughts to share there. So you can go ahead and join that, and we try to make sure we get updates posted there as best as we can. Thank you all for your time, for everything you do to make scouting happen, to make camp happen. We have 35 days, if I counted correctly, until week 1. We are very excited. And again, if you know people who are able and want to join our team, please share that information and get us in contact. We'd be happy to talk. Got a few more spots we want to fill to make sure everything's going to run smoothly. But we're very excited. Things are ramping up. I know I have like 2 more days with each of my senior classes, and then like a couple weeks at a concert, and then poof, I'm at camp. So it's coming right around the corner. It's all going to be super awesome. Very exciting. Thank you all for everything you do. I'll hang out in case people have other questions. Otherwise,
I do.
Evening. We'll see you next time. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Brett, we have our special situation again this year. Seamus came last year. He is autistic, very definitely. He has a one-on-one. I don't think there was any problem last year, but he does not stay overnight. Either his mom or dad will bring him and be his one-on-one for the day that he's there. And they're both YPT trained, and so that I believe that last year it was mom, and mom checked in because dad was one of the leaders that was there. And he just wants to make sure it's all right again this year before they go through paying and getting him ready and saying, oh yes, you're going to camp and see your friends again.
Yes, I think we should be able to accommodate that. That's something we can work on.
It probably will be like this for a number of years because he's not going to be able to be on his own. Okay.
Yes, all
right.
We should be able to make that work.
Yeah. Okay. And we had a big meeting with Mr. Hamill last year, and he said didn't seem to be a problem. And afterwards, it also seemed to be fine.
Awesome.
So I will tell Dad we're all good then.
Great.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else with questions?
Brett, going back to the tiger and his mom, does the lion and tigers, do they break off and go elsewhere?
They don't. So they
don't
stick around with that. They might do slightly different activities, or they might have little modifications to the activities and then they do in some areas. But
I just want to let the leader know, which is his mom, because she's all worried. It's her first time. This is my second year.
Yeah, they'll be with the group.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you. And this is awesome.
Brett, can I ask how medication works? I have a Weeblo that takes a pill every morning, but he takes it in a pudding. I basically just open the capsule, drop it in a pudding, and I know we have to go through a nurse. How does that gonna work?
Yeah, so that's I would make sure either note it on the med form or tag it on as best you can. That's something we would touch base with the nurse during check-in. One of the things they do as they're taking in medication is they make sure they know when that's going to be dispersed or anything that needs to be known about that. could also be a
Yeah.
spot to fill out the accommodation form. So if you bring in, if there's a particular pudding, bring some of that.
Yeah,
The
well, I'll
nurse will
bring
be
the
able to keep.
pudding. I have no problem with that. I bring everything. I just didn't know how it's gonna work if it's.
Yeah, and so the nurse would be able to, put that in with pudding and make sure the scout gets that. The New Hampshire requirement is that that medication stays under the nurse since it's being distributed under their license. So, but they can certainly work with individual situations that like that.
Okay.
So you'll just make sure that the nurse is aware of that. They'll make sure that that's on their notes, and we should be able to make that happen.
Yeah, I'll write it all out.
Any other questions?
Right, I sent you an email a while back. Just wondering if you, like 3 weeks ago, just wondering if there's you got it. It has a couple questions.
I do apologize for having fallen behind on some of those.
So basically, we have leaders that we'd like to share a week, and right now we're 210 per leader on our bill. I'd like to get that resolved as we can.
Gotcha.
And then,
Yep.
then we have a $50 credit for one of our scouts for filling a page for the pancake mix, which was sent to Allison as well.
6. And $50 pancake.
And there's some other questions in there as well. So if and when you get to it, I appreciate it. We're coming week 1.
Yep, I'll pull that up. I'll work on doing that before I go to bed tonight.
I appreciate it.
Thank you all for sticking around. Any other questions beyond those?
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you all.